The horse reared, and Pearl Monroe hit the dirt hard, rolling twice before the county fair crowd erupted in shouts. Sunrise Gulch, Texas Panhandle, late summer 1879, and the whole Mesa village had turned out to watch the riding contest that somebody had just rigged. Pearl scrambled up, her heart hammering as the Palomino bolted through the tent row, scattering fairgoers. A man in a dark coat lunged past her, catching the trailing reins just before the horse trampled a child's dropped doll.
"Easy, girl. Easy now."
His voice was low and steady, the kind that made horses listen and women wonder. Pearl's breath caught as he turned, those blue-gray eyes locking on hers with a mix of concern and something sharper.
"You all right, miss?"
"I'm fine. That saddle cinch was cut clean through."
She pointed at the leather strap dangling from her mare's belly. Jeremiah Ashford, the saloon pianist who everyone knew never touched a gun anymore, frowned and glanced toward the judge's platform, where a man in a fine suit adjusted a bright red bandana at his throat.
"Merrick Carlisle."
"The sawmill boss?"
"The same. And if he's rigging contests, he's after something bigger than prize money."
Pearl grabbed her horse's mane, swinging up bareback in one fluid motion that made Jeremiah's eyes widen.
"Then, we better find out what before someone gets hurt worse than a bruised hip."
She extended her hand down to him.
"You comin'? Or you just going to stand there looking pretty?"
A grin tugged at his mouth as he gripped her forearm and pulled himself up behind her, his chest pressing against her back as the mare danced sideways.
"Pretty, huh?"
"Don't let it go to your head piano man."
She kicked the horse forward just as three men in Carlisle's colors pushed through the crowd, shouting. Pearl leaned low over the mare's neck, Jeremiah's arms coming around her waist to steady himself as they bolted between tents. Canvas snapped, and guy ropes sang as they ducked under an awning, emerged on the far side near the wagon circle.
"Left. Go left."
She veered hard, and his hand slid from her waist to her ribs, fingertips brushing just under her vest as he caught his balance. Heat that had nothing to do with the late summer sun flared between them.
"You always this handsy with women you just met?"
"Only when they're trying to get me killed at a county fair."
A gunshot cracked behind them, and Pearl felt Jeremiah's whole body tense, his grip tightening reflexively.
"They're shooting. At a county fair."
"Told you, this was bigger than prize money."
She urged the mare toward the mesa edge, where the trail dropped steep toward town. Behind them, the fairgrounds dissolved into chaos as Carlisle's men overturned a punch bowl table, scattering glass. Pearl's horse answered only to her voice, always had since she'd gentled the wild mare 3 years back. And right now, that bond was the only thing keeping them ahead of bullets.
"You got a plan? Or are we just running blind?"
"There's a back way down through the rocks. Circus taught me all the shortcuts when we toured through here in '76.
"You were with a circus?"
Rode high wire and trick horses till the owner tried to sell me to pay his debts."
She said it flat and hard, the way you state facts that still sting. Jeremiah's hand found hers on the reins, his thumb brushing her knuckles.
"Good thing you got away, then."
They hit the trail descending in switchbacks, the mare picking her way with the sureness of a mountain goat. Halfway down, Jeremiah glanced back and swore softly.
"They're coming down on horseback now. 4 of them."
"Then, hold on tighter, piano man, because this gets steep."
She clicked her tongue, and the mare leaped a gap in the trail, landing hard on the far side. Jeremiah's arms locked around her waist, and his hat flew off, tumbling down the cliff face.
That was my good hat.
I'll buy you a new one if we live.
I'm holding you to that.
His breath was warm against her ear, and for a heartbeat Pearl forgot about the men chasing them. Forgot about everything, except the solid weight of him pressed against her back, and the way his heartbeat hammered in time with hers. Then, a rifle shot chipped rock 3 feet from the mare's hooves, and reality snapped back hard.
Get down.
She threw herself sideways, taking Jeremiah with her as they slid off the horse into a crevice between 2 boulders. The mare bolted down the trail toward town. Pearl landed on top of Jeremiah in the narrow space, her hands braced on his chest, their faces inches apart. Dust motes hung in the slanting sunlight between them.
This is cozy.
Shut up, they'll hear you.
His grin was infuriating, and she wanted to smack it off his face, except his hands had settled on her hips to steady her, and she could feel the heat of his palms through the thin cotton of her dress. Above them, hoofbeats clattered past, Carlisle's men shouting to each other.
They think we kept riding.
Good. Now don't move.
Wasn't planning on it. This is the most fun I've had since I quit the circuit.
You were a gunfighter?
His smile faded, and something old and tired crossed his face.
Once. Long time ago. Lost someone because I was too slow. Haven't drawn since.
Pearl's heart twisted, and she found herself touching his jaw without meaning to, her fingertips tracing the day's stubble.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. I play piano now. Quieter work. Less blood.
The hoofbeats faded down the trail, and Pearl realized she was still sprawled on top of him, her hand still on his face, his thumb now drawing slow circles on her hip. She should move. She didn't move.
We should.
Yeah,
Get back to town.
probably.
Neither of them moved. Then a hawk screamed overhead, and Pearl jerked back, scrambling out of the crevice. Jeremiah followed her out, brushing dust from his coat. The sun was dropping toward the canyon rim, painting everything amber and rust.
Your horse headed for town. We're on foot.
She'll come back when I call her. She always does.
That's some kind of magic trick from the circus?
Just trust. Whiskey only answers to me.
She put 2 fingers to her lips and whistled sharp and high, a pattern like birdsong. They waited. A minute passed. 2. Then hoofbeats echoed up the canyon, and the Palomino mare trotted into view, reins dragging.
I'll be damned.
Useful skill when men keep trying to steal your horse.
She swung up and offered her hand again. This time, when Jeremiah settled behind her, his arms came around her waist without hesitation, like they'd been riding together for years instead of 20 minutes.
We need to find out what Carlisle's really after.
I know where to start. Land office. There's been talk of a scandal, claims being stolen and resold.
Water rights.
What?
At the fair, I heard 2 of his men talking. Something about diverting the creek that feeds the homesteads up on the North Bench. Ruin their crops, force them to sell cheap.
That's dozens of families.
Which is why he's running us off. We figured it out.
They rode into Sunrise Gulch as the sun touched the mesa rim, casting long shadows down the dusty main street. The town clung to the cliff edge like a stubborn prayer. False front buildings painted in faded reds and sun-bleached blues. Jeremiah pointed toward a 2-story building with a hand-painted sign.
Land office. But it'll be closed now.
Then we come back at dawn.
Until then,
You know somewhere safe?
He was quiet for a beat too long.
What?
my room's above the saloon. But
But what?
there's only one bed.
Pearl felt heat climb her neck, but she kept her voice steady.
I've slept in worse places, Piano Man. You stay on your side. I'll stay on mine.
Yes, ma'am.
The saloon was doing a brisk evening trade when they slipped in the back stairs. Jeremiah's room was small and tidy. A narrow bed with a patchwork quilt, a washstand, and a battered upright piano that took up half the space.
Make yourself comfortable. I'll get us some food.
He disappeared down the hall, and Pearl sank onto the bed, suddenly aware of how hard she was shaking. The adrenaline was draining out of her all at once, leaving her hollow. When Jeremiah returned with a tray of bread and cheese and 2 tin cups of water, he found her sitting with her face in her hands.
Hey,
He set the tray down and knelt in front of her, his hands gentle on her wrists.
you're okay. We made it.
I keep seeing that cinch strap. Someone wanted me to fall hard enough to break something.
But you didn't. You're tough as nails.
I'm scared.
She hated admitting it, but the words came out anyway, raw and honest. Jeremiah's thumb stroked the inside of her wrists, his touch feather-light.
Me too. But we're going to figure this out. Together.
She looked up and found his face so close, she could count the flecks of gray in his blue eyes.
Why are you helping me? You don't even know me.
Because you didn't hesitate to pull me up on that horse. Because you whistle to your mare like she's your best friend. Because when you landed on top of me in that crevice, you touched my face like you actually gave a damn.
Pearl's breath hitched.
I did.
Good.
He stood and handed her a cup of water, his fingers brushing hers in the exchange. The tension between them was thick enough to cut, but he stepped back, giving her space.
Eat. Rest. Tomorrow we hit the land office at first light.
And if Carlisle's men are waiting?
Then, I guess I pick up a gun again.
The weight of that statement settled between them like a stone. Pearl wanted to tell him no, wanted to find another way, but she could see in his face that he'd already decided. For her. The thought made her chest tight. They ate in silence, passing the water cup back and forth until the last of the daylight bled from the window.
You take the bed. I'll sleep on the floor.
Don't be stupid. It's your bed.
And you're a guest.
A guest who got you shot at. Just get in. It's big enough for 2 if we're careful.
Jeremiah looked like he wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. He shucked his coat and boots. She kicked off her own dusty boots, and they lay down on opposite edges of the narrow mattress, a careful foot of space between them. The saloon piano music drifted up through the floorboards, some jaunty tune that didn't match the pounding of Pearl's heart. She lay rigid, staring at the ceiling beams.
Pearl,
Yeah,
thank you. For not running when those men started shooting. For trusting me.
She rolled onto her side and found him already facing her in the near dark, his expression unreadable.
thank you for not letting me face this alone.
His hand found hers in the space between them, fingers lacing together. It should have felt awkward, the stranger she'd met 6 hours ago holding her hand in the dark. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. She fell asleep like that, their hands clasped, his thumb tracing lazy circles on her knuckles. She woke to pre-dawn gray and Jeremiah already up, splashing water on his face at the washstand.
Morning. Land office opens at 6.
Pearl sat up, finger combing her hair.
You sleep at all?
Some. Been thinking about Carlisle's water scheme. If he diverts that creek, the whole North Bench dries up by September. Those families lose everything.
Then, we stop him.
We need proof. Something that ties him to the diversion and the land grab.
The land office will have the claim records. If he's been buying up foreclosed homesteads,
Then, that's where we start.
They slipped out the back stairs as the town was waking. Shopkeepers sweeping porches, a milk wagon rattling past. The land office was a narrow building wedged between the general store and a boarded-up assayer's office. The door was still locked.
how long do we wait?
Not long.
He pulled a thin piece of wire from his pocket and knelt by the lock.
You pick locks too?
I'm a man of many talents.
The lock clicked, and they slipped inside, pulling the door shut behind them. The office was cramped and dusty, filing cabinets lining the walls, a scarred desk buried under paper stacks. Pearl started pulling drawers while Jeremiah rifled the desk.
Here. Look at this.
He spread a hand-drawn map on the desk, creek tributaries marked in blue ink, red X marks on a dozen homesteads.
Those are all North Bench claims.
And look at the ownership transfers. All sold to Carlisle in the last 6 months.
Foreclosures?
Forced sales. He dammed the creek 3 miles upstream, blamed the drought. Families couldn't water their crops, couldn't pay the bank, had to sell.
That's murder by drought.
And completely legal, if no one can prove the dam exists.
Pearl stared at the map, rage building hot in her chest.
Then, we find the dam.
It's 3 miles up canyon. Rough country.
I've got a horse that goes anywhere I tell her.
We're going to need more than that.
A floorboard creaked behind them, and they both spun. Merrick Carlisle stood in the doorway. That bright red bandana knotted at his throat, a revolver in his hand. 2 of his men flanked him, blocking the exit.
Morning, Merrick.
Jeremiah's voice was easy, but Pearl saw the tension coiling through his shoulders. Carlisle smiled, cold and sharp. His voice carried the smooth menace of a man used to getting his way. He stepped closer, the red bandana stark against his throat. That bandana, always tied the exact same way, left over right, the knot off center. Pearl had seen it twice yesterday. Now it felt like a brand. He gestured with the revolver toward the map. You 2 are smarter than I gave you credit for. Pity it won't do you any good.
Every homesteader on the North Bench will know what you did.
Carlisle laughed. By the time anyone believes you, I'll own every inch of water rights from here to the pass. Sheriff's in my pocket. Judge too. You're alone.
We don't need the law. We just need to blow your dam.
Carlisle's smile vanished. Colorized late 1800s American West photograph. Natural light, gentle contrast. Slightly soft focus. Subtle film grain. Faint dust/scratches. Slight vignetting. No text, no watermark. Same 2 leads as pic_1. Woman with chestnut hair and green eyes in cream dress with burgundy vest. Man with sandy brown hair and blue-gray eyes in white shirt and dark trousers. Both standing tense in cramped land office. Facing man in fine gray suit with bright red bandana at throat, holding revolver. 2 armed men in brown vests, flanking doorway. Woman holding unrolled map. Man with hand hovering near empty holster. Confrontational expressions all around. Filing cabinets line walls in background. Scarred wooden desk in midground covered with papers. Foreground shows scattered claim documents on floor. Early morning gray-blue light through window casting long shadows. Dust motes visible in light shaft. You won't make it out of town.
Watch us.
Jeremiah grabbed Pearl's wrist and yanked her sideways as Carlisle's men raised their rifles. They hit the floor behind the desk as the first shot splintered wood above their heads. Pearl's heart was trying to punch through her ribs, but Jeremiah was already moving, pulling her toward the back wall, where a narrow window stood open for ventilation.
Go.
Not without you.
I'm right behind you, move.
Pearl dove through the window, hit the alley dirt rolling, came up running. Jeremiah crashed through a second later, and they bolted down the alley toward the livery stable, where Whiskey was stalled. Behind them, Carlisle's men poured into the alley, shouting. A bullet whined past Pearl's ear, and she ducked instinctively. Jeremiah's hand found the small of her back, urging her faster. They burst into the livery, and Pearl whistled sharp. Whiskey's answering whinny came from the back stall.
No time for a saddle.
They yanked open the stall door, and Pearl vaulted onto the mare's bare back, Jeremiah swinging up behind her in one smooth motion. His arms locked around her waist as she kicked Whiskey into a gallop straight toward the wide-open front doors. Carlisle's men scattered as the horse thundered past, hooves striking sparks from the street stones. Pearl leaned low over Whiskey's neck. Jeremiah's chest pressed against her back, his breath hot on her neck.
Canyon Trail north.
I know.
They hit the edge of town at a dead run and plunged onto the narrow path that climbed the cliff face toward the high country. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit faded as the canyon walls closed in. But Pearl knew they'd be coming. Carlisle couldn't afford to let them reach that dam. The trail switchbacked steep and treacherous, loose shale sliding under Whiskey's hooves. Jeremiah's grip on Pearl's waist tightened every time the mare stumbled, his body shifting to help her balance.
You're a natural horseman.
I'm a natural survivor. There's a difference.
She laughed despite the fear thrumming through her veins, and felt Jeremiah's answering chuckle rumble against her spine. How could she feel this alive, this present, running for her life with a man she'd met yesterday? But she did. Every nerve ending sang with awareness of him, his solid warmth, his calm in chaos. The way his hands on her waist felt both protective and possessive in the best way. They crested the canyon rim, and the land opened into high mesa country, sage and juniper dotting the rust-colored earth. A mile ahead, Pearl spotted the glint of water, a narrow creek that should have been flowing strong in late summer, but was reduced to a trickle.
There.
I see it.
They followed the creek upstream, pushing Whiskey hard. The sun climbed higher, heat shimmering off the rocks. Pearl's dress was soaked with sweat, her hair sticking to her neck. Jeremiah's hand slipped on her waist, and he adjusted his grip, fingers splaying across her ribs. The intimacy of it made her breath catch, but there was no time to think about it. Ahead, the canyon narrowed into a slot barely wide enough for the horse.
This is where they'll ambush us if they're smart.
Then we better be smarter.
She slowed Whiskey to a walk, scanning the rim rocks. Nothing moved. The silence felt wrong, too heavy, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. They rounded a bend, and there it was, a crude dam of logs and boulders wedged across the canyon, backing up the creek into a stagnant pool.
That son of a gun.
We need to take it down. Now. Before they catch up.
They slid off Whiskey, and Pearl tied her to a juniper, stroking her neck.
Stay quiet, girl.
Together they waded into the shallow pool and started pulling at the logs. The water was cold, the current surprisingly strong where it forced through gaps in the debris. Pearl's hands slipped on wet bark, her dress dragging heavy in the water. Jeremiah braced against a boulder, muscles straining as he shoved.
This one's the keystone. If we shift it, the whole thing should.
On 3.
They counted together and heaved. The boulder shifted an inch. 2 inches. Then it rolled free, and the dam collapsed with a roar, water surging through in a brown torrent. Pearl stumbled, and Jeremiah caught her, his arm around her waist, as the current tried to sweep her downstream. They staggered onto the bank, soaked and gasping. Pearl's hands were on Jeremiah's chest, his arms still around her, and for a breathless moment, they just stood there, dripping, staring at each other.
You okay?
Yeah. You?
Never better.
He was grinning, and she realized she was too, wild exhilaration flooding through her. They'd done it. They'd actually blown Carlisle's scheme wide open. Then, hoofbeats echoed down the canyon and reality crashed back.
Mount up.
They ran for Whiskey. Pearl swung up, and Jeremiah followed, his wet shirt cold against her back. The mare took off at a gallop, hooves splashing through the freed creek. Behind them, 6 riders burst into view, Carlisle in the lead with that red bandana flying.
They're gaining.
Head for town. If we can get to the main street.
He owns the sheriff.
But not the homesteaders. If they see that creek running again, they'll know what happened.
Pearl urged Whiskey faster, the mare's sides heaving. They hit the canyon trail at a reckless speed, stones skittering under hooves. A rifle shot cracked, and Pearl felt the bullet pass close enough to stir her hair. Jeremiah's arms tightened around her.
When we hit town, you jump off and run for the general store. I'll draw them off.
Absolutely not.
Pearl.
We stick together, Piano Man. That was the deal.
There was no deal.
There is now.
She felt him hesitate. Then his lips brushed her temple so quickly, she almost thought she imagined it.
Stubborn woman.
You like it.
I really do.
They rocketed into Sunrise Gulch with Carlisle's men 50 yards behind. Pearl aimed Whiskey straight down Main Street, shouting at the top of her lungs.
The creek's running. Carlisle damned it. The North Bench claims are clear.
Shopkeepers looked up. A farmer loading a wagon froze. Word spread like wildfire through a dry forest. By the time they reached the far end of town, a crowd was forming, angry voices rising. Carlisle reined in hard, his men pulling up around him. He looked at the growing mob, at Pearl and Jeremiah on the exhausted horse, and his face twisted with rage. That red bandana seemed to glow in the harsh noon sun. He pointed at them, his voice carrying down the street. You'll pay for this. Both of you.
Sheriff's coming.
Jeremiah's voice was tight. Pearl saw the lawman pushing through the crowd, hand on his gun. But behind him came 3 women she recognized from the county fair, homesteaders' wives, and they were carrying the surveyor's map from the land office. One of them held it up, shouting, "He's been stealing water rights, forcing sales. My husband's claim is on this list." The crowd's mood shifted from curious to furious. The sheriff looked from Carlyle to the map, to the angry faces surrounding him, and Pearl saw the moment he decided which side of history to land on. The lawman stepped forward, his voice carrying. "Merrick Carlyle, you're under arrest for fraud and destruction of water resources." Carlyle's hand dropped to his gun, but Jeremiah was already moving, sliding off whiskey and putting himself between Pearl and the sawmill boss. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise like a blade. "Don't." For a long moment, Carlyle stared at Jeremiah, weighing his chances. Then his shoulders sagged, and his hand came away from the weapon. The sheriff's deputies moved in, taking Carlyle and his men into custody. The crowd erupted in cheers. Pearl slid off whiskey, her knees suddenly weak. Jeremiah turned and caught her as she swayed, his hands gentle on her shoulders.
"You did it."
We did it.
His hands stayed on her shoulders, and she realized they were both shaking, adrenaline draining away and leaving exhaustion in its wake. The crowd was celebrating around them, but all she could see was the way he was looking at her, like she'd hung the moon and all the stars besides.
"You're the bravest person I've ever met."
I had a good teacher.
"I play piano. You ride like the devil himself is chasing you."
He was. Red bandana and all.
He laughed and pulled her into a hug that felt like coming home. She wrapped her arms around his waist and breathed him in, dust and sweat and something uniquely Jeremiah. When they finally pulled apart, the sheriff was waiting, looking amused. The lawman tipped his hat. "Miss Monroe, Mr. Ashford, we'll need statements from both of you."
"Tomorrow? I seen the warned Randant Reckling. Once out of said, there were place at the time. Tomorrow gun stress but that for year and luch coims. I were they love, with a lost law and spark. A singular stress, and to the waist to bowing freached in the teaching dying ties. The headed part from higher. I called it tire, but my finally was pay for a Christ it's walking."
Jeremiah's tone made it clear there would be no negotiating. The sheriff grinned. "Tomorrow's fine. You two look like you could use some rest." Pearl watched the lawman lead Carlyle away, that red bandana disappearing into the jailhouse. Relief hit her so hard, she swayed again. Jeremiah steadied her, his arms sliding around her waist.
"Come on. Let's get you somewhere you can sit down before you fall down."
I don't fall down.
"You're doing it right now."
She realized he was holding most of her weight and had the grace to blush. They made their way through the celebrating crowd to the saloon. The owner took one look at them and pointed upstairs. "Second door on the right. It's clean and the bed's made. You look like you've been through a war."
"Thank you."
Jeremiah guided Pearl up the narrow stairs, whiskey's reins still looped over his wrist. At the landing, she stopped.
We can't bring a horse upstairs.
"I'm not leaving her tied outside after what she just did."
Fair point.
They coaxed whiskey up the stairs, the mare's hooves clattering on the wood. The room was small but bright, a window looking out over Main Street. Jeremiah tied whiskey's reins to the bedpost, and the horse immediately dropped her head, exhausted. Pearl sank onto the bed, and Jeremiah sat beside her, so close their shoulders touched. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Pearl turned to look at him and found him already watching her.
What happens now?
"I don't know. What do you want to happen?"
I want to stop running.
"From what?"
Everything. The circus. My past. People who want to use me.
She took a shaky breath.
I want to stay somewhere long enough to matter.
You matter here.
His voice was rough.
You matter to me.
Jeremiah.
I know I said I wouldn't draw again. I know I'm just a piano player who listens too much and talks too little. But Pearl, you walked into that saloon, and everything changed. Your fire and courage, and you don't back down from anything. You make me want to be braver.
You are brave. You put yourself between me and Carlisle. You rode straight into danger.
Because you were in danger. That's different.
Is it?
Yes.
He cupped her face with both hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones.
When it's you, everything's different.
She closed the distance between them and kissed him. His lips were warm and gentle and tasted like dust and hope. He made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, one hand sliding into her hair. The kiss deepened, and Pearl felt like she was falling and flying at the same time. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Jeremiah rested his forehead against hers.
Stay.
What?
Stay in Sunrise Gulch. Stay with me. I know it's fast, and I know we barely know each other. But Pearl, I can't let you ride away. Not now. Not after everything.
I don't want to ride away.
Then don't.
What would I do here? I'm a circus rider.
You're a woman who saved an entire community from a corrupt land grab. You could do anything. Teach riding. Work with horses. Partner with me.
Partner?
I've been thinking about expanding. Music lessons. Maybe a small theater. Sunrise Gulch is growing, and people want culture. Entertainment. Beauty.
He kissed her again, soft and sweet.
You could help me build something. If you want it.
I want.
She kissed him back and felt him smile against her lips. A knock on the door interrupted them. The saloon owner's voice came through the wood. Brought you some food and water for the horse, and some stew for you two if you're hungry. Jeremiah opened the door and accepted the tray with thanks. Pearl poured water into the basin for whiskey, while Jeremiah set the stew on the small table. They ate standing up, too restless to sit, passing the single spoon back and forth.
This is the best thing I've ever tasted.
You haven't eaten in 12 hours.
Still counts.
She scraped the last bit of stew from the bowl and licked the spoon clean. Jeremiah watched her with an expression that made her stomach flip.
What?
Nothing. Just thinking about how lucky I am.
I'm the lucky one.
He set the empty bowl aside and pulled her close again. This time, the kiss was slower, deeper, full of promises and possibility. Pearl's hands fisted in his shirt, and she felt his heartbeat hammering against her palms. When they broke apart, they were both flushed and breathless. Outside the window, the sun was starting to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. The town was quieting down, the excitement of the arrest giving way to the normal rhythms of evening. Pearl moved to the window and looked out at Sunrise Gulch, at the main street and the buildings perched on the cliff edge, and the vast sky stretching endlessly above. Jeremiah came up behind her, his arms circling her waist.
What are you thinking?
That I've never had a place to call home.
You do now.
She leaned back against him and felt his chin rest on top of her head.
What if I'm terrible at staying in one place?
Then, we'll figure it out together.
What if I get restless?
We'll take whiskey and ride out to the canyon. Come back when you're ready.
What if I can't be what you need?
Pearl,
He turned her around gently, his eyes serious.
you're already everything I need. You're brave and clever and you don't give up. You fight for what's right. You risked everything to save people you barely know. That's who you are. That's who I fell for.
Fell for?
I'm falling for you. Have been since you walked into the saloon covered in dust and looking for trouble.
I found it.
You found me.
She kissed him again, pouring everything she couldn't say into the touch. His arms tightened around her, and for the first time in her life, Pearl felt truly safe. Not because she was hiding, but because she'd found someone who saw all of her. The wildfire and the fear and the fierce determination, and wanted her anyway. When they pulled apart, the room was growing dim, the last light fading from the sky. Jeremiah lit the lamp on the table, and warm golden light filled the small space. Whiskey was dozing by the bed, one hip cocked, completely at ease.
She likes it here.
She's a good judge of character.
Is that why she tried to bite me when we met?
You grew on her.
Like a fungus?
Like a very handsome, very patient fungus.
He laughed and pulled her back into his arms. They swayed together in the lamplight. No music except the sound of the town settling into evening and Whiskey's soft breathing. Pearl rested her head on Jeremiah's chest and listened to his heartbeat, steady and strong.
Thank you.
For what?
For not letting me run. For following me into danger. For believing I could do this.
You did it yourself. I just provided backup.
You provided everything.
She felt him press a kiss to the top of her head.
We should get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be busy. Statements for the sheriff. Probably a town meeting. Definitely a lot of grateful homesteaders wanting to shake your hand.
Our hands.
Our hands.
They made up a makeshift bed on the floor for Whiskey and settled onto the narrow bed together, still fully clothed. Jeremiah's arm wrapped around Pearl's waist, and she tucked herself against his side, her head on his shoulder.
Jeremiah? I'm glad I stayed.
Me too.
She felt him smile in the darkness. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out into sleep, but Pearl stayed awake a little longer, watching the stars appear through the window. For the first time in years, she wasn't planning her next escape route, wasn't looking for the exits, wasn't calculating how fast she could disappear. She was exactly where she wanted to be. The next morning, Pearl woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee. Jeremiah was already up, standing by the table with 2 steaming cups. He smiled when he saw her eyes open.
Morning.
How long have you been awake?
Long enough to sneak downstairs and beg coffee off the cook.
She sat up and accepted the cup he offered, wrapping her hands around the warm ceramic.
You're spoiling me.
I plan to make a habit of it.
They drank their coffee standing at the window, watching Sunrise Gulch come to life. Shopkeepers opened their doors. A farmer drove a wagon down Main Street. The blacksmith's hammer rang out in steady rhythm. It looked like any other morning, but everything had changed.
Ready?
For what?
For being a hero.
I'm not a hero.
The town disagrees.
He pointed, and Pearl followed his gaze to see a small crowd gathering outside the saloon. The sheriff stood at the front, looking patient. Beside him were the homesteaders' wives from yesterday, and behind them, at least a dozen more people.
Oh no.
Oh yes.
I don't do well with crowds.
You just rode through a town screaming about water rights.
That was different. That was survival.
This is gratitude. Come on. I'll be right beside you.
They headed downstairs together, whiskey following at Pearl's whistle. The moment they stepped outside, the crowd erupted in cheers. The sheriff raised his hand for quiet. Miss Monroe. Mr. Ashford. On behalf of Sunrise Gulch, I want to thank you for your courage yesterday. You exposed a criminal conspiracy and saved dozens of families from losing their land. The crowd applauded. One of the homesteaders stepped forward, a weather-beaten man in his 50s. My claim was on that list. Carlyle tried to buy me out for pennies last month. If you hadn't stopped him, I'd have lost everything. My family thanks you. Pearl felt her throat tighten. She'd spent so long running from people that she'd forgotten what it felt like to be part of a community. Jeremiah's hand found hers and squeezed.
We just did what was right.
What she said.
The crowd laughed. The sheriff cleared his throat. We took your statements last night from the witnesses who saw the dam. Combined with the surveyor's maps and the testimony from the families Carlyle tried to force out, we have more than enough to convict. He'll be going away for a long time. More applause. Pearl felt Jeremiah's thumb trace circles on the back of her hand. One of the homesteaders' wives stepped forward, holding a basket. We took up a collection. It's not much, but we wanted to show our appreciation. She pressed the basket into Pearl's hands. Inside was fresh bread, preserves, a wedge of cheese, and a small pouch of coins. Pearl's eyes stung.
You don't have to do this.
The woman smiled. We want to. You gave us our future back. This is just a thank you. The crowd began to disperse, people stopping to shake their hands or pat Jeremiah's shoulder or smile at Pearl. Within minutes, the street was back to normal, the morning routine resuming. The sheriff lingered. One more thing. Carlyle's sawmill is going to need new management. The bank's looking for someone trustworthy to take it over. Pays good, and the work's steady.
I appreciate it, but I'm a piano player.
The sheriff grinned. I wasn't talking to you. He looked at Pearl. You know horses. You know how to read people and spot a con. You're smarter than half the men in this town and braver than all of them. The mill needs someone who won't be bullied and won't play favorites. Seems to me you'd be perfect.
Me? Run a sawmill?
The sheriff shrugged. Or don't. But the offer's there if you want it. Think it over. He tipped his hat and walked away. Pearl stared after him, speechless. Jeremiah was grinning.
He's right, you know.
I don't know anything about lumber.
You didn't know anything about water rights yesterday. Didn't stop you.
That was different.
How?
I don't know. It just was.
You're scared.
I am not.
You are. You're scared you might actually want to stay. Might actually build something. Might actually let yourself be happy.
She opened her mouth to argue and realized he was absolutely right. The idea of staying terrified her. Not because she didn't want to, but because she'd never done it before. Never let herself get attached. Never risked caring about a place or people or a future. Jeremiah pulled her close, his hands gentle on her shoulders.
It's okay to be scared. I'm scared too.
Of what?
of losing you, of saying the wrong thing, of not being enough.
You're more than enough.
Then trust me. Trust this. We'll figure it out together.
She looked up at him and saw nothing but honesty and hope in his eyes.
Together.
Together.
She kissed him right there on the street, not caring who saw. His arms wrapped around her and lifted her off her feet. When he set her down, they were both laughing.
Okay.
Okay, what?
Okay, I'll think about the sawmill.
Really?
Really.
His smile could have lit the whole territory.
We should celebrate.
How?
Come with me.
He took her hand and led her through town to the livery stable. The owner looked up from mucking out a stall and grinned. Figured I'd be seeing you two. Whiskey's in the back stall. Fed and watered. Jeremiah pressed coins into the man's hand. Keep her here as long as Miss Monroe needs. She's going to be staying in town. The stable owner's eyebrows rose, but he just nodded. Pleasure doing business. They walked back through town, hand in hand. Pearl felt lighter than she had in years. The future was uncertain, but for once that felt like possibility instead of threat. Back at the saloon, Jeremiah led her to the piano. He sat down and patted the bench beside him.
Sit.
I don't play.
You don't have to. Just listen.
He started playing, and Pearl recognized the melody from that first night. Soft and sweet and full of longing. She leaned against his shoulder and let the music wash over her. When he finished, she turned to look at him.
What's it called?
It doesn't have a name yet.
You should call it Pearl.
Too obvious.
Fine. Call it Wildfire.
Perfect.
He kissed her, and Pearl tasted happiness. Sweet and bright and real. They spent the rest of the day in town, making plans and dreaming out loud. Jeremiah showed her the empty building next to the saloon that could become their theater. Pearl talked to the bank about the sawmill and came away with a contract to review. By evening, they were back in the small room above the saloon, exhausted and exhilarated. Pearl stood at the window watching the sunset paint the canyon in shades of amber and rose. Jeremiah came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist.
Happy? I see they're warned and undresting she were tan saw for some time, compared to less of the time. The war the wind stas but that 4 year in love corns. There were their love place, with a lust lots mark again.
Terrified.
Same thing.
Is it?
When you care about something. Yes.
She turned in his arms and looked up at him.
I care about you.
I care about you too.
He kissed her, and Pearl felt the last of her walls crumble. She'd spent her whole life running, and now she was choosing to stay. Choosing this man, this town, this future. It was the scariest thing she'd ever done. It was also the best. Outside the window, the sky blazed gold and crimson. Somewhere in the distance, whiskey whinnied. The town settled into evening, peaceful and content. Pearl pulled back just enough to see Jeremiah's face.
Thank you for catching me.
Thank you for letting me.
They stood together as the sun sank below the canyon rim and the first stars appeared. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The sawmill. The theater. Building a life together. But tonight was just for them. Jeremiah cupped Pearl's face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheeks.
I love you.
The words hung in the air between them, simple and true. Pearl felt her heart stumble, and then race.
I love you too.
She'd never said those words before, never meant them, never felt safe enough to risk it. But standing here in the golden light with Jeremiah looking at her like she was everything, Pearl knew she was exactly where she belonged. He kissed her slowly, thoroughly, and she kissed him back with everything she had. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless.
Stay with me. Not just tonight. Every night.
Every night.
Build this life with me. The theater. The sawmill. Everything.
Everything.
He smiled, and Pearl saw her whole future in that smile. They stood together as the last light faded, and the stars blazed overhead. Below them, Sunrise Gulch settled into peaceful evening. Somewhere a dog barked. A woman laughed. The saloon piano started playing downstairs. Someone else at the keys tonight. Pearl rested her head on Jeremiah's chest and listened to his heartbeat. For the first time in her life, she wasn't planning an escape. She was planning a future.
What do we do now?
Whatever we want.
I want to kiss you again.
I was hoping you'd say that.
He pulled her close and kissed her under the stars. Outside the window, the night was warm and still, the air sweet with the scent of sage and possibility. Pearl Monroe had spent her whole life running. Tonight she was finally home. The next morning, Pearl woke tangled in Jeremiah's arms, sunlight streaming through the window. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. Then everything came flooding back. The canyon, the ride, the arrest. Jeremiah. She turned her head and found him already awake, watching her with that quiet intensity that made her stomach flip.
Morning.
Morning.
Sleep well?
Better than I have in years.
He smiled and kissed her forehead. They dressed slowly, reluctant to leave the peaceful bubble of the little room. But Sunrise Gulch was waiting. When they stepped out onto the street, the town was buzzing. People called out congratulations. The surveyor shook Jeremiah's hand. The homesteaders' wives hugged Pearl. The sheriff stopped them outside the general store. Word came from the territorial judge. Carlisle's going to trial. Every fraudulent claim he pushed through is being reviewed.
The sawmill?
Sheriff tipped his hat, being held in trust until the trial concludes. But between you and me, with the evidence we have, it'll be auctioned off to pay restitution. You interested? Jeremiah glanced at Pearl. She squeezed his hand.
We're interested.
The sheriff grinned. Thought you might be. Stop by my office this afternoon. We'll talk details. As he walked away, Pearl turned to Jeremiah.
We just bought a sawmill.
We just bought a sawmill.
Do you know anything about running a sawmill?
Not a thing.
Me neither.
We'll figure it out.
She laughed, and he pulled her close, right there on Main Street, with half the town watching. Pearl didn't care. Let them see. Let them know. This was her man, and her town, and her future.
What about the theater?
We'll do both. Sawmill during the day. Music at night.
You really think we can?
With you? I think we can do anything.
Pearl stood on tiptoe and kissed him, quick and sure. A couple of kids whistled. An older woman scat, but she was smiling. Jeremiah grinned against Pearl's lips.
Scandalous.
Absolutely.
I love you.
I love you too.
They walked hand in hand to the land office to file the paperwork for the sawmill. Then to the bank to arrange financing. Then back to the saloon, where Jeremiah played piano, while Pearl worked on plans for converting the barn. By sunset, they were exhausted and exhilarated. They sat together on the saloon porch, watching the sky turn gold and pink and purple. Whiskey was in the corral, content and well-fed. The town was peaceful. Somewhere a family was singing.
Thank you.
For what?
For not running. For staying. For choosing this.
I didn't choose the town piano man. I chose you.
Same thing.
I suppose it is.
He wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and she leaned into him, perfectly content. Tomorrow they would start working on the sawmill. Tomorrow they would face the challenges and the hard work. Tomorrow they would begin building their life together. But tonight they just sat and watched the stars come out over Sunrise Gulch. Two people who had found each other against all odds, who had fought together and won together, and fallen in love in the process. Pearl thought about the girl she had been just days ago, always ready to run, never staying long enough to care. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who had found her home, her partner, her future.
Jeremiah?
Yes? She and the warned Rundant Reckthing, one Souders said, they were place at the time. The warned the wind stas but that we year and luch coins. Or yes, with a lost lots mark Pogan. Yes, the waist bowing frest in the teaching nine ties. The head had barred fire. They called it fire. The wind finally was pay for a Christ it's walking.
Promise me something.
Anything.
Promise me we'll always be honest. Always. Fight together. Always choose each other.
I promise.
He turned her face toward his and kissed her slowly, sealing the promise. When they broke apart, Pearl was smiling.
Good. Because I have plans, piano man. Big plans.
Tell me.
The sawmill first. Get it running properly. Then, the theater. A real stage. Curtains. Lighting.
And?
And a home. A real one. Not a room above a saloon. Something with a porch and a garden.
I like the sound of that.
And a piano. A good one. So you can play whenever you want.
And you? What will you do?
Ride. Teach riding lessons, maybe. Help run the sawmill. Manage the theater bookings.
Sounds like a full life.
It does.
Sounds perfect.
It really does.
They sat in comfortable silence as the night deepened around them. Inside the saloon, someone started a card game. Laughter drifted out through the windows. The air was warm and sweet, carrying the scent of dust and sage and possibility. Pearl felt Jeremiah's steady heartbeat under her palm, and knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. No more running. No more hiding. Just this man. This town. This life they were building together. She looked up at the stars blazing overhead and smiled. The future stretched out before them, full of promise and challenge and love. And Pearl Monroe, was ready for all of it. Jeremiah shifted beside her, pulling her closer against the cooling night air.
Cold? I see in the morn rend and trekting, one saber said, they were clest down. The morn the dang stress with that for year in his trams. They were nuffed, the lust lod spark. A singly stress. They looked bowing freach to the teaching that entice. Our fire. I called it tire, but my signed he was pay for a Christ it's walking. By Sengelios.
Not even a little.
She wasn't. The warmth of his body against hers, the solid strength of his arm around her shoulders, kept the chill at bay. Below them, the town was settling into sleep. Lanterns winked out one by one. The sounds of evening conversation faded to peaceful silence.
I keep thinking, this is a dream. That I'll wake up, and you'll be gone.
I'm not going anywhere.
Promise? I see in the morn rand and reckling, and in Souter said, there were place at the time. The more the wind stas but that for year and Dutch carms. There were doth, the lost lod spark again. Promise? To the waist bowing freshed in the teaching dine ties. The head had barred fire. I called it fire, but my finally was pay for a cry situation.
I promise. You're stuck with me, piano man.
Best news I've had all year.
She laughed softly and turned in his arms to face him. His eyes were dark in the starlight, warm and steady and full of everything she'd always wanted, but never dared to hope for.
You know what the funny thing is?
What?
I thought staying in one place would feel like a cage, like I'd lose myself.
And?
And it feels like freedom. The real kind.
Because you chose it.
Because I chose you.
He kissed her then, slow and deep and thorough, and Pearl felt the last tiny piece of her guarded heart finally open. When they pulled apart, she was breathless.
Come on. Let's go inside. I'll make tea. We can plan tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Can wait.
True.
Just stay here with me a little longer.
As long as you want.
They stayed on the balcony as the moon rose, casting silver light across the canyon walls. Whiskey nickered softly from the corral. A coyote sang in the distance. The air smelled of sage and summer heat and new beginnings. Pearl rested her head on Jeremiah's shoulder and felt his arms tighten around her. This was home. Not a place, but a person. Not a building, but a choice. And she chose this. Chose him. Chose them. Every single day for the rest of her life. The stars wheeled overhead in their ancient dance. The night deepened, and Pearl Monroe, who had spent her whole life running, finally stood still and let herself be loved. Jeremiah's hand found hers in the darkness, their fingers intertwining naturally.
What are you thinking about?
Everything. Nothing. How different everything looks now.
Different how?
Brighter. Like someone lit a lamp I didn't know was there.
I know exactly what you mean.
She squeezed his hand gently. Below them a door closed. Footsteps faded down the street. The whole town seemed to be holding its breath, peaceful and content.
My whole life I thought love meant losing myself, giving up who I was.
And now?
Now I know it means finding myself. With you.
Pearl.
I mean it. You see me. Really see me. Not just the rider or the runaway. You see all of it.
Because all of it is worth seeing.
Her throat tightened with emotion. She turned and kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it. When they broke apart, his eyes were shining.
I don't have fancy words. I'm just a piano player who got lucky.
You're everything I didn't know I needed.
Same.
They stood together in the warm night air. Two souls who had found each other against impossible odds. Tomorrow would bring work and challenges. But tonight was perfect. Complete. Exactly what it needed to be.
Take me inside, Piano Man.
Yes, ma'am.
He led her back through the window into the small room. The lamp was still burning low, casting golden light across the simple furniture. Jeremiah closed the window gently and turned to face her. Pearl stepped into his arms without hesitation. They swayed together slowly, no music but their heartbeats, no audience but the stars. This was their beginning, their promise, their forever starting right now in this moment. And Pearl had never been more certain of anything in her entire life.